Bonjour, Amita, and bonne année.
Bonne année. Très, très, très bonne année.
Merci. Today is our 10th most wonderful meeting of your remembrances and experiences from a young child in the ashram. Last time you wanted to finish up on dramatics, and today a little bit more on education, maybe towards the end.
Oh, I see. I would like to say a little more about dramatics.
Fine.
And a very short bit on education, and followed by work in the ashram, which is part of our education in the ashram.
And you're also going to share some remembrances.
Some remembrances after that. Or just now?
Just now.
Just now.
Yes.
After I'm done with the dramatics.
Very good.
Dramatics is an interesting way of understanding human nature and also our own. But it cannot replace life. You may enact the role of a poor man on the stage, but in life, if you do not see the real needs of the poor, you cannot have drawn the full benefit of having enacted that role. The talented actor has to learn not to act in life or exaggerate intonation in our everyday conversation without any meaning, for no reason at all. The two domains, acting and life, have to remain distinct so that we can really understand people and situations better, not only through our external observation, but through our heart, our feeling. I would like to pay tribute to all those who have taught me one aspect or another of dramatics. First and foremost, naturally, the mother, who always insisted on the clarity of diction because it expressed the clarity of thought. It expressed the thought of the dramatist, for us here, Sri Aurobindo, more clearly. And communication with the audience becomes more perfect. In the ashram, there is one advantage. We are in a closed community, and so all those who come to watch a play have already mostly read the play and are familiar with it. And if it is Sri Aurobindo's or mothers, they've already tuned themselves to receive something. So the actor doesn't really have to give to the audience or make the audience understand anything. The actor also puts himself in touch with a higher inspiration, and that works on both the actors and the audience. And that is what has given me time and again an experience of absolute calm and, how shall I say, pleasant receptivity. And as late as 1978, mother had left her body in 1973. When I had done the role of Savitri, someone had told me, "We thank you because you put us again in touch with the same atmosphere we used to feel when you recited lines from Savitri in front of the mother." So it was the biggest compliment and grace that I could have.
You mentioned there are
Yes,
others.
the teachers.
Others, teachers, yes.
Norman Dowsett mainly spoke to us about how to maintain the concentration, especially in Sri Aurobindo's lines, from one text to another, that is, in a dialogue, you have spoken, then I reply. So he used to say that you have to listen to all the lines. So your reaction in the next part of the dialogue is natural. The other thing, perhaps I should add, because otherwise less competent actors say their part and wait for their cue, and then they say their part. But if you follow the lines of the other person, here mostly Sri Aurobindo's iambic pentameter, so you have to follow the sentence properly, and you pick up your line only after listening to all the lines, not just the cue word. The other thing Nominda taught us is stage etiquette. He used to tell a very funny story of an actress in England who knew that the more important actor and actress was upstage, who talked down to a person who was downstage, right or left. So once there was this actress who was doing the role of a queen or something. She was seated on a chair and she found that her chair was too much in front, so she shifted it back. When she did that twice over, the following performance, they nailed the chair to the stage, and she was furious. But I noticed that it is not always the main character who has to be given the top upstage position. But in each scene, we have to see which character, even a minor character, can be important for the action of the play. So the minor character can have a more important position and the hero or heroine a less important position, because he or she is mainly listening with only just monosyllables as the next person I had already spoken to you about was, for voice production, Maria Meli. I had spoken to you, and she had taught us how to throw the voice and control the quality of the voice when you are speaking aloud. And naturally the use of the diaphragm and all that. I don't quite remember what exactly I had told you, but she called us all who were teaching in French. It was in the early 50s. We spoke French in some intonation or another. So Mother wanted all those who were teaching any subject in French to take a coaching from her. So that is how we had special classes with her, and I learned from her how to speak to the gymnasts collect in the group, how to speak to a class of older children, younger children, how to express what I feel even in a loud tone. Shrimai Pitoev, you know Christophe Pitoev, their uncle. I'm sorry, their aunt. She taught me, she came here in 1958 when we did Vasavadatta, I read a few lines from Vasudhata that day. She had directed it with Norman Dowsett, both together. And she taught me how to manage, let us say manage, a long speech, a monologue in a play. And she said, you mustn't just go on adding one line after another. You have to build it up. And as I had done some literature, I knew how the thought of the character progressed from one passage of 4 lines to another passage of 5 lines, and then at the end, so that it rises up in a crescendo. And you finish, your concluding lines are, if you want, I will demonstrate it over there when we record for the recordings.
Wonderful.
The other person was evidently her sister, Svetlana Pitoy, who was very well known in France already for her stage work. I think, if I'm not mistaken, she had done Joan of Arc before coming here and had received a lot of applause for it, appreciation for it. From her, I really learned how to direct a play, and quite by chance. She had told me afterwards, or told someone afterwards, I didn't want to teach her anything. But it so happened that one year I was assisting her, and she had the script in front, and I could see from behind how she was marking and what she was rubbing off, and how she was handling the actors on the stage. Then I asked her, why are you rubbing off? So she said, this has been already conveyed to the actors and they have grasped it. So now we have to take the next stage in the same scene. So play directed grows through the rehearsals as the actors become more and more aware of their own part and their part in relation to the others. So that's how I think ends our thing in dramatics.
Well, it's a beautiful ending to remember all those who helped us along the way. And I knew Svetlana quite well, was very close to her, loved her deeply, but I never had the chance to see her direct a play. It must have been quite an experience.
Really, both of them, and Norman Dowsett also, all 3 of them were extraordinary teachers. They just picked up the right point. With Norman Dowsett, we had, before Shrimai and Svetlana came, there was another very important incident, and his habit was, Mother used to read out to us the lines from Sri Aurobindo that we were going to recite. So he, with all those who would act or recite, were in front of her, in her rooms or in the playground, wherever, and he would mark on the script in which place Mother went up with her voice, the intonation, where she paused, and everything, so that when he taught us, he could give us the right picture. It was very good.
Amita, the one thing I want to know, you have acted in so many dramas, and Mother also guided you, directed in many plays. So from your many decades of experiences, so what do you suggest or advise the young actresses who take part in our 1st December?
There are 3 aspects. One is to know the whole play, not only your scene. The story of the play. A play is telling a story. The second thing is to know one's own role well enough, even from the psychological point of view. That is how that role is growing from one scene to another, and what it is that person's reaction to the others. It is very important not just to react once. I don't want to look at it. But to react with your whole self, as you do in life, whole self will react, and you have to carry it on to the next phase where you say, no, it's not so bad. I can look at it. I can understand it. This continuity of the character from one bit of dialogue to another has to be connected with the other person's speech. So this is very important. The other important thing is not to think I am acting. To forget oneself, to concentrate so much on the role. If it is comedy, then you get completely engrossed in it. You don't think, oh, I'm doing so well. You know, there's no return on yourself. You are just in the part. And the more you are in the role, the more the audience will enjoy. Because most young actors are worried about how the audience is receiving their acting. No, they have to just act. They have to just do their role. And one more thing I think I should add, in Sri Aurobindo's plays, which are in blank verse, what I used to do is translate the dialogue that I had to give in common language, so that I know what is the exact answer that character is giving. So when I speak in blank verse, I am not speaking it like poetry. I am speaking it for the thought or for the feeling, the actor. This also, if you want, I'll demonstrate over there on a very small, short dialogue. That should be all for dramatics. It has been a wonderful way of knowing myself, because I knew the role I was taking and who I was. And when I was on the stage, I was entirely that role. And believe it or not, after the final day, it took me about one whole day to come back to myself. And usually we acted on the 1st of December. So 5th of December meditation marked for me the beginning of the coming year and myself. Here there is a very, I don't know if I'll be understood. You know Paru? Paru was the registrar of our school. And she wanted to tell me something about the classes during the vacations. And during the vacations, I used to really go into the role. And that year I was doing a vigorous, passionate role of Cleopatra in Rodigun. So she suddenly called me from the corner of the street. I said, no, not now, I'm not myself. Not now, I'm not myself. She said, but it's very important. So I went to her and she communicated to me whatever she had to for the classes and the school. And then I turned to go and I heard her say, half aloud, it is true, she is not quite herself. Because one could feel, you know, the other atmosphere that was coming around me.
So what are the qualities one learns by doing dramas?
Understanding human beings and oneself, and appreciating others, becoming conscious of oneself, and learning to, conscious of oneself, that is, learning to correlate mind, that is the thinking, the heart, the thought, the feeling, and the physical gesture. And I shall put in a little incident with my students of dramatics. I used to demonstrate it. I had demonstrated it, I remember, once. I took a random incident, a painter in front of his easel. And I told the actor students to sit with me and to see one of the friends of the painter who is looking at it, and just with a gesture to show how he is appreciating it. And then I, on another occasion, I remember having said, any detailed gesture is seen. You are looking at the person who is speaking, and on this side he is clenching his fist, and the audience sees it.
Yes.
So it is very important to know that the whole body position and the body's reaction is important. So the complete, Mother used to tell us, complete concentration. Isolate yourself from the others. So in French, she had told me, il faut savoir s'isoler dans tout ce genre de travail. In all this type of work, you have to know how to isolate yourself. And I remember having had a very big discussion with my older students who said, how can you communicate if you isolate yourself? So the argument was that if you isolated yourself, you would be representing more fully the character you are enacting. And so that character communicates to the other character. It is not you as your friend and your friend meeting on the stage. So the communication is of a different type.
So one has to identify with the character.
That is the main thing. And how you will do it depends on your imagination, you know, and your conviction that you can do that role. Mother used to be very careful when we were young to edit in 2 French plays. In one particular French play, she had edited a bad character, a scheming character. She said, when these young people act, part of the quality of that character enters the consciousness. I don't want the children of the ashram to have that, you know. So she edited the play herself to eliminate that scheming character from the play.
Once Manoj told me that he was standing outside the projection room, and Mother made the comment, I don't want my children to see Shakespeare because of the darker things that are in his plays.
Yeah, in that context, she had personally told me something. At that time, it mustn't be made a rule, because afterwards things have changed in the ashram, and Sri Aurobindo himself has said Shakespeare gives you a picture of the life, but life of his times. you see. And Mother told me after they had done a dialogue with Norman Dowsett, 2 or 3 girls, I think, on one of Corneille's plays. Corneille, the famous French dramatics of the 17th century, who introduced the first personal psychological drama. So after seeing that scene, Mother watched it very seriously. The next morning, she came to see me in the corridor. She used to come. She said, you know, I don't want our children to have these old traditional views about human love. I want them to look at human love in a new way, and so I'm encouraging some of the young boys and girls to move around together, play together, and then she told me, oh, that is different about myself, that much will depend on what I will do after I finish my studies. Because of the life I had chosen, my friendships will be camaraderie. And that is the people with whom I worked. That will be the more, because I had already chosen a life of inner discipline. And here I may put in Mother's question. One day there was no current in Mother's classroom where she used to read from her book and we used to ask questions. And one day there was no current and there was no light. So she said, today I can't read, so I will ask you questions. And I shall get the book perhaps. You will be able to get all the questions. Let's be able to mention the name of the students who were there and to whom she had asked which question. I can do it later on,
all right,
after finding it out on the paper. I thought it was January 51, now is it? Yeah, I found it. Oh, this is a little different, not... Mother is asking us, the students, one by one, because most of us who were here were already beyond our teens, so we were on the verge of choosing what we are going to do in life. And Mother didn't expect all of us to stay back in the ashram. She knew that some of us would be going out, and especially for the next 2 generations, she had done the commentary on the Dhammapada with that intention, saying, she had said this in front of me to Pavitrada, our director, that she would want all our children who go out from here to have discernment. And in short, she had said, don't do anything that harms your body. And she had told the story of the monkey, the ape, and the French soldiers who were in Algiers having a good drink and enjoying. And they thought it great fun to give a glass of wine to one of the one ape which was their pet. So the fellow took it from their hand and imitated them and drank it off. But the whole night through suffered awful pain in the abdomen and all, and rolled below the table and couldn't tolerate the pain, vomiting and all that. On the next occasion, when the soldiers gave him another glass of wine, he took the glass and threw it at them. He took the glass and threw it at them, and Mother praised that instinctive truthfulness, rectitude towards one's own physical body, that one has to be conscious, and once the human mind accepts to be perverse, Mother said no power in the world can change you. Here are Mother's questions to the students. Est-ce que le yoga, est-ce que tu as l'intention de faire le yoga? Do you have the intention, do you want to practice sadhana? Oui, mère. Yes, mother. Pourquoi veux-tu faire le yoga? Why do you want to do yoga? Pour sentir la présence du divin. To be able to feel the presence of the divine. To the next one. Et toi, and you? Pour réaliser le divin, et pour cela, il faut se perfectionner. To realize the divine, and for that, we have to achieve self-perfection, perfect ourselves. Turning again, et toi, pourquoi est-ce que le yoga t'intéresse? Why are you interested in yoga? Parce que je peux me connaître moi-même. Because I can come to know myself. Toi, another one, pour faire les actions que l'on sent comme la vérité de l'intérieur. To be able to act in life, which is, I'm sorry, I'll translate again. To do actions that we feel are the truth of our inner self. Et toi, est-ce que tu fais le yoga? And you, do you practice yoga? Yoga means sadhana, not asanas. Quelquefois, sometimes. Tu es honnête. Mais pourquoi quelquefois? You are honest. But why only sometimes? Then she turns to another person. Est-ce que tu as une idée de ce qu'est le yoga? Do you have an idea of what is yoga? Je pense que c'est un chemin par lequel, qu'est-ce qu'on trouve au bout du chemin? La présence constante du divin. I think it is a path by which my mother interrupts. What do you find at the end of the path? Answer, the constant presence of the divine. Turning to another student, dans le yoga, qu'est-ce qui t'intéresse le plus? In yoga, what is it that interests you most? I don't know what is yoga, he says. Is it by concentrating on you, Mother? It's a good symbol. Enfin, personne n'a dit heureusement qu'il désirait le yoga pour obtenir le pouvoir. Luckily, none of you, luckily is too common a word, none of you has said that He wants to do yoga for getting power. There are people and countries where they practice sadhana for being superior to others, and so that they can dominate. It is the worst possible reason for which you can do yoga. The most egoistic, that brings very unhealthy consequences, that brings about. So she has given the different possibilities to achieve peace and tranquility, to have a philanthropic attitude towards humanity, and to serve humanity. But all this, she says, is not sufficient. You have to be able to do yoga for the love of the divine, just because you want to receive the approximate translation.
Now, I put together a list of the elder ashramites, and I asked you if you could share any remembrances of them, and one or two, and you said I could share something about all of them. We would be most grateful.
Because I have been here right from childhood now. I should start with Anupurani. She was our dance teacher, and I think I spoke over the first time we talked about dance, that Mother gave us the theme just after we had learned only 3 or 4 steps. On her, I would only say that she had been a student of Uday Shankar, and she was in Almora, and I had first seen her when she had come away from there, and she had been chosen over there to learn folk dances. So she had taught us some North Indian folk dances which were arranged by Uday Shankar himself. They were very beautifully arranged.
So Uday Shankar had come here?
Uday Shankar had come here long before we had come. He had come here once, I have heard so, and but after that I don't know quite the circumstances or the incidents. But he is certainly a name to be remembered, because he it is who started the movement of dance for artistic purposes. Just as Rabindranath Tagore had introduced stage work for all people, students, girls and men and boys alike, and so that that time's audience, end of 19th, early 20th century, wouldn't mock at women coming and doing a role on the stage, or girls. He himself used to sit on the stage, and very often Rabindranath himself read a text to which the others danced. Here I can quote a very strange incident of Sri Ramakrishna. He had gone to see a play, and it was a play on Sri Ramchandra and Sita. After the play was over, he went in and did an obeisance to the actress who had done the role of Sita, and she said, I saw the very presence of Sita when you were doing. It was so very strong in it. So it is possible to impersonate entirely a role on the stage, that which Mother used to insist on. And what happens then, you learn by experience. Otherwise, when you are reading a story, you also understand. But when you are enacting a role, you understand absolutely by your whole personality. To Anupurani, Mother had given a very interesting subject in 1949 on the 1st of December. It was a subject which Mother had herself written the details of beauty personified, contemplating on descending on earth. That was the first part. The second part was beauty getting ready to come down on earth. And the third part was beauty delighted to manifest herself on earth. It was an extraordinary theme. Her father, Purani ji, was a very important person in Gujarat, where in his reminiscences he has said, as a very young boy, when he was at college, he saw the advertisement of the Arya paper. You know, Sri Aurobindo wrote the Arya in 1914 after Mother and Paul Richard asked him to start a philosophic journal. So Purani ji says he saw this advertisement in the paper without knowing enough English, without knowing why he was prompted to. He took the paper and went away from the college premises, but within the premises, and posted you have to send some money, how do you say that in English? Abonnement in French. He sent that with a request to send him there. And that's how he came to know about Sri Aurobindo. And he had come here quite young, and he used to go to Africa to give certain lectures on Sri Aurobindo and Indian culture. He was an exponent of Indian culture, and we had an exhibition of Indian art in the hall, which is now the Hall of Harmony, but on the western side. And there is a photograph in the bulletin where Purani ji is showing Mother the statue of Nataraja. The statue of Nataraja has been described and explained very beautifully by Sri Aurobindo himself in the Foundations of Indian Culture. So, as he was such an expert in all these subjects, I remember once I had a chance to go to Tanjore, and Mother had written in my letter, yes, surely you will go if it if it pleases you. In French you say, si cela te fait plaisir, if you would like to. So I said, yes, I would like to. And because Puraniji knew so much about Indian architecture and art, I went to him. I said, Puraniji, we are going to Tanjore. Will you give me a little briefing on the topic so that I can understand it better? So, in very short, he told me that in India, around a temple grew up a city. Just as in Greece you have city-states, like that the Indian temple had in its surroundings something like a locality which became a independently run unit in the kingdom. The king ruled over an area, but the temple surroundings were under the priests. And Tanjore was one of the first structured temple in the south. Before that, you had monolithic temples, that is, as you have in Mamallapuram. They scoop out of the stone, they carve on the stone, and it is worshipped. It used to be worshipped in its time. But Tanjore is one of the first structured temples, and the most important story is that the king asked his architect that the steeple of the temple must never, the shadow of the steeple of the temple must never fall on the ground. I don't want human beings to walk even on the shadow of the steeple of my temple. So the architect did the structuring so well that the shadow of the steeple in all seasons falls on the temple itself. And usually South Indian temples have 4 entrances known as Gopuram, and the Gopuram gradually became almost higher than the temple. But in Tanjore, as it is the first temple, structured temple, the Gopuram is lower than the steeple of it. Ambu Bhai was very closely associated with Puraniji. He was our teacher of asanas. He was quite a feature, we must say here, and very happy, always very happy. He used to take to the mother her tray of midday meals. So I was standing in the corridor by chance, and he said, move, I can't shift in this. So I quickly shifted, and he took the tray of mother's meal upstairs. But otherwise, for asanas, for what is known as usually yoga nowadays, he was a very careful teacher, and he himself was extraordinary, and he has demonstrated asanas quite often in front of the mother. And the great feature was him lying in total relaxed condition, and young boys would put a bamboo stick under his heels and another bamboo stick here, and they could carry him as if he were a dead body. It is called Shavasan, the dead, this thing. And he was called, he told me, I can cure your sciatica pain. I will come to your house. So he had come to the house, And he said, I teach in front of your mother so that everything is correct and proper. And he taught me the movements that would cure a pain that was having, and I was getting at that time, and actually it worked.
I want to share a remembrance of Purani, Ambu with you. It was around 1961, and I asked him if I could photograph all of his asanas. And I have a series of 17 photographs of his asanas, which I'll show you one day. So I was very meticulous, getting the camera just right, watching the shading and everything, and taking a lot of time. And at one point I hear this small voice say, "Could you hurry it up a bit?" Imagine those positions he was in, and I'm taking too much time.
I should perhaps now speak of Pavitrada a little bit. He was our director, and the one sentence that changed my life was him saying, "Tell me what you do when you have nothing to do, and I shall tell you who you are." So, and I observed mostly when I didn't have classes or anything to do, I used to paint pictures or play some music or do some gardening, things like that. And he was quite happy when one day, during a teachers' meeting which was being held in the school, when I was not a teacher, he asked my mother, "May I look and see what she is doing?" You see the correctness. He asked my mother, "May I look into the room to see what she's doing?" So when he looked in, I could see like a subtle physical, look there. And I was painting, reading a book, How to Draw and Paint, and I was painting a picture. So he was very pleased. I used to work as his secretary for some time, and when he got the report that I was good in French and I was writing well, and especially no spelling mistakes in dictations, he called me up and he asked me to write off and on to his dictation a letter in French to any foreign disciple. The first time I wrote, he took the rough copy, which would be typed by Sujata Di and sent afterwards, signed by him. So he scanned the writing and very, very pleased. He an approval of pleasure that there was no spelling mistake. He asked me to do also another work. The bulletin was gaining in popularity, and then there were many people from Europe and other places in India who asked for a copy. So for Europe and America maybe, especially Europe, he had classified also Japan, all those who were foreigners. He marked in cards alphabetically their name and their address. I had to mark on the opposite side of the card when their copy of bulletin was dispatched. So I told him, "Why do we have to do that?" He said, "By chance, if any copy is lost, or if somebody hasn't received his copy, then we can say, yes, we have sent Oh yes, it was our mistake, we didn't say. That's how. I used to work thrice a week up there. And the very interesting incident was he used to go to take up exams of the lycée sometimes. And he told me that I could use his own table and chair if I wanted to, because he knew I had this slight pain. So one day when I was using his chair and table for marking this, suddenly Mother came in. Mother said, "Do you have the address of Nobuko Kobayashi?" I said, "Yes, Mother, I have." And I picked up and she took the card with her address, and then she said, "You know, in Japanese, one tree means a tree, two trees, orchard, and three trees, a wood, a forest." And then she said, "I know Japanese, would you like to learn?" And I was so dumbfounded that I couldn't say yes or no. And then she herself said, "Oh, I was writing the letter in English, so I spoke to you in English." She usually spoke to me in French. So, and then she took the card. There was another time when she had come while I was writing to Pavitrada's dictation, and my back was to the corridor where she was walking. And Pavitrada, I noticed he paused. Sometimes he paused just to think what to say next. But this time the pause was a little long. I told myself he's taking a little long to dictate. Actually, he was looking up and smiling, and he didn't tell me Mother was coming. And Mother came and stood just beside me when I realized that he was actually waiting for Mother to come. Mother told him something, and as Mother came in, I used to sit with my legs on one side because not cross-legged. So as Mother came, I wanted to shift the leg. Mother said, "No, it's all right." And she stood there, and she had something to say to him about. On another occasion, I was not present in the room, but it was his birthday, and our class, which he had taken in about 10 years before that, wanted to remember him as a professor. So they asked me to paint a picture, and I had done 3 sunflowers. I think I spoke of it.
Yes, we did, yes.
And we all signed. And Mother asked Pavitrada how many flowers did she have in her hand. I had spoken about this one. Pavitrada was very meticulous about everything, and Mother would sometimes laugh at his, very mentally correct ways. Mother used to sit with a group of ladies in the playground, and they were eating something, perhaps a toffee or something. And Mother called Pavitrada and gave him one. And she told the others, "He won't eat now." He won't eat now. He has got his own time, And the other story is of that I have told you about the French play where Mother called him and he read. Oh, I was very impressed by Pavitrada before I ever knew him, because my parents, when they came here first, used to go to Pavitrada or Noleda and these people to get a better idea of what was the spiritual life of our place, of this place. My parents used to meditate even before coming here, and they were interested in sadhana. They had a correspondence with Noleda, but we had a photograph where Pavitrada is sitting in dhoti and chadar, and my parents are by the side. And in that meditative posture, I liked the whole look very much. In 2009, we did a play. I directed a play, The Pathfinder, written by Ranjit Sharkar, and I was requested to direct it, where he has spoken about a way he has presented in the form of a sequential dialogue, chorus, the story of these disciples who felt the call and came here. And it has got the chorus and then the dialogue with the disciple. So the disciples were Amrita, Pavitra, Nolini, Purani, and Vara and Suresh Chakraborty. Vara was Ramaswamy Iyengar, who came here very young from Calcutta when Sri Aurobindo was in need of some funds. You know, Sri Aurobindo didn't come here to found an ashram. He was in the movement of the freedom struggle movement in India. He had been interned for 1 year, 1908 to 1909. And in 1910, he got the information that the British government might arrest him again. So that's how he came to Pondicherry. And when he came to Pondicherry on the 4th of April, 1910, he sent one young man, Suresh Chakraborty, who was only 17 or 18 years old and who lived in a mess. He was a student's mess, and he writes, he had suddenly received a little tiny note on a 2-inch chit paper torn from a piece of Sri Aurobindo telling him, go to Pondicherry, to fix a house for him. And it was the first time he was coming to Pondicherry. He has given a very beautiful description of Sri Aurobindo's arrival and of one Srinivasachari, a very, very austere Brahmin who had already arranged for Sri Aurobindo's stay here. And Nalinida told me once, I had gone to ask him a few questions, and I asked him to translate a few verses in Latin that are there in collected poems as the introductory lines. And I knew Nalinida had learned Latin and Greek from Sri Aurobindo, so I told him to translate them. He translated them, and quite by chance I asked him, who is this Ramaswamy Iyengar we hear about? So he said in a very ironical and amused tone, Vara ke chinona? You don't know Vara? He was so shocked that I didn't know Vara, which was the pen name of the person. When he went away from here, he became quite a writer in Tamil, and his work always reflected Sri Aurobindo's writings. His novel, Sundari, was enacted on the Tamil stage quite often, and I didn't know that the one we called Doraswamy was actually Vara return. So I used to come back from the ashram quite regularly, a little late in the evening, after sundown, almost after sundown. And he used to walk up and down. The embroidery department had a sort of a terrace balcony. He walked up and down with his wife, Amma. We used to call her Amma, up and down. And I used to always overhear the word Sundari. So Sundari in Bengali or Hindi means the beautiful one. So I came back to my mother. I said, say Sundari, but it's not quite right to call. Then she said, no, it is the name of a novel. It is the name of a character he had created who was like me, who would move around on her own without any protector or companion. So he used to say, like Sundari, his play.
You mentioned that you directed this play, but you said 2009.
In 2009, I directed not his play, I directed a play where all these people are spoken of. Amrita, who as a child, a very young boy, used to come to visit Ramaswamy Iyengar. So there is a scene between Ramaswamy Iyengar and the young Amrita who comes, and in a flashback of a vision, we come to know that as a boy he used to see a blue ball rolling towards the south. He used to stay in Madras, Chennai. He used to see a blue ball rolling southward, and he just came south and he met Ramaswamy Iyengar and came to know about Sri Aurobindo, and he used to sit and chat with Ramaswamy Iyengar. Sri Aurobindo himself then helped him to sit for the matriculation exam and read poems to Amrita. And for the Savitri recitation, when I do it there, I shall tell you he was the one who made the first selection and read to Sri Aurobindo, because he writes in his reminiscences that at that time Sri Aurobindo used to read poems with him and had even read lines from the Savitri, because the final version was done more or less. There are portions which are left in 50s, but he had done an earlier version of Savitri when he was at Baroda already. So he had read certain things. So Amrita was a very gentle person and very soft-spoken. He had been the manager of the ashram for some time, and he, I suppose, had spent more time in the office than anywhere else, and he was a little awkward in his gestures. So Mother had taken the habit very often of seeing our ability, physical ability, and she would throw a toffee and you would catch it. And one day we were in the corridor. Our mother was about at the end of the corridor, say about 5 meters away, and Amrita was crossing. Mother asked him to wait, and she threw the toffee, and he started fumbling. And the way Mother laughed at his fumbling, but actually he caught it. After fumbling twice, he caught it. So we were all very amused.
Well, I heard the story that she asked him one time, "You can't catch a small toffee?" And he said, "Mother, I'm trying to catch what's behind it."
Oh, that's unique. About Nolinida, there is nothing to be said really, we know so much. It was a treat to listen to him read out his own articles to a few of us. For his Bengali essays and articles which would go in for publication, he used to call some of us. When he read something in English, very often he would read in the playground itself. And we were very thrilled when he read about the very first beginnings of Bengali poetry. As in English you have Chaucer, story poem, and in Bengali they had found in Nepal or somewhere like that a few palm leaf write-ups of verses which were called Charya Patra, Charya Patro, and which contained the essence of the spiritual experience of seekers of that time. And it was in old Bengali, so one had to work it out a little bit. And I was thrilled when Noleda read that article and explained to us the thing. He was a scholar and especially a literature of mark. Many of his books have appeared. And when Mother did the Grand Secret, Mother asked Noleda to write the écrivain, that is, the role of the writer. Le Grand Secret is a play written by the mother where 7 people, very important people of the world, we are told, have quite by chance meet on a lifeboat because their ship was wrecked. That is the background of the story. And Mother wrote the concluding paragraphs of each because the artist, the industrialist, the writer, the sportsman, and people of this category who are there are all telling their own story of life because they think within minutes we are going to sink. So how to spend this time? We will tell each other our story because they didn't know them and they didn't know each other. So they tell their own story and everyone says, but I am not satisfied. I know there's something else that we have to achieve and I'm not found it. On the boat, as the helmsman, is sitting a quiet figure who the mother has named the unknown person, l'inconnu. After all of them have spoken, he gives the answer mother wants to give, that behind everything in the world there is a truth. You have to find that truth and that presence and transmit it through your work. So Noleda had written the role of the writer. Udar was in charge of the Arpagon, and he loved acting. He loved acting. And on his birthday, when Svetlana came here, she had arranged for a variety program in the school just to wish him happy birthday. And she had arranged it with other actors of her class. Then suddenly she told me, you know, I would like you to take this part. It would be a way of introducing the different items, and you will act the visiting journalist, a French visiting journalist who doesn't know English. So she comes in and finds suddenly that there is a program like that, and she asks questions. So I had to come in a peculiar outfit, quite, tights, a bush shirt, which I borrowed from Vishweshwar, a bush shirt and dark glasses. Hair was shampooed and with a camera on the shoulder, and I had to enter the school from the back entrance. And everyone was very careful because the door used to be ajar and no one from the streets had to come in. The stage was on the northern side, ashram side as usual. Then I came in and I was waiting for my entrance. Arati Ji, Manoj's sister, she was on duty, seeing that no one would come. And she was standing like that, and she eyed me twice like this. Then she turned to me, "Madam, this is a private performance." Then I took my glasses off and I said, "It's me." So then after the play, and I spoke English with a French accent, Andrida was there, present. So when he greeted all the actors saying you've done very well and all that, I went last. And he said, "Mauvaise fille de Paris," the bad girl of Paris, those who are, dancers, they will speak like that. And so, but he said it was very good. I can't remember any of the lines. Some of the children remembered the lines for quite a long time. And at the end, this journalist was supposed to take a group photograph. So I smartly went and sat down with the camera as if I was going to, and I couldn't open the lid from front. So Shrikant, who was one of the students, came out and opened it for me, and we had an extempo dialogue, and I pretended to take it. It was the very first time that I let myself go for some character who would not think of me as myself.
Would you like to break for today?
Yes,
We've been talking for a long time.
It's
And
very late.
we could take this up another time. I can leave the paper with you.
No, you don't need to. It's better if I have it extempo.
Okay.
Yes, I know. We were talking about Udan.
Yes.
I have acted with him in the role of Cassiopeia and Cepheus. He had done the role of Cepheus. And we had done before that a French play where he had done the role of Monsieur Jourdain, and that he had liked very much. I shall tell another time perhaps.
Good.
I will prepare a little bit. I prepare a little bit so that it is.
Check next time, and there are more people, so we can speak on each one.
Yes, and when we speak, it will be nice if we show a photograph of these
Yes,
people.
it would be
We'll add
very
it.
nice.
No?
We can add that,
We'll
yes.
add it.
Excellent
We have
idea.
it, and some of them we have Mother's own sketches. Mother's sketch of Noleda, Pavitra,
Yes.
Ambu. We have Mother's sketches. That would be nice to
Very
also
nice.
introduce Mother's.
We'll add them.
We will add up something
So
like
shall we meet on Sunday then for the studio?
that.
You can choose any text you want, and we have texts also that we'll show you from Savitri.
Yes, I have chosen from Savitri.
Good.
I
good.
told you in sequence of as we acted them
Yes.
in the stage. I chose them, and actually I was thinking today we are going there to record.
Ah,
So I kept things ready. Perhaps we would need one more session. Afterwards you can edit
sure,
as you want.
certainly.
I think we would need one more session where I would like to speak about our drills and rhythmic gymnastics, which Mother had spoken of.
And we didn't finish education.
And education,
Okay.
which Mother had
Good.
spoken of.
Still, couple of talks are still pending.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. This is most unexpected, trying to remember things which I hope it will happen.
No, but you have wonderful memory.
It had happened to me, I can't help it.